Welcome, everybody, to the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Channel. We're live. It's Friday, December the 8th, around 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and I'm glad all of you can join us out there. And don't forget, folks, this is a live show, so you can chime in with all your questions and comments. I'm joined right now by Mr. Jesse Schule of GamblersWorld.net, myself, Ross Benjamin of GamblersWorld.net as well. We're waiting on our other participant, who's usually always on time, Mr. Sean Higgs, but he'll jump in whenever he gets here, if he gets here. If not, me and Jesse are totally capable of carrying the load. Jesse, 3 a.m. in the morning in Thailand.
Yeah, when you said December 8th, I had to scratch my head and think, man, is it that close to Christmas already? Like the Christmas tree in front of me wasn't a good enough sign.
Yeah, it is. It's getting there, man. It's about 2.5 weeks away, and looking forward to that as well with friends and family. But today we're talking the NFL, folks, and Jesse's going to be looking at the game between the Indianapolis Colts and the Cincinnati Bengals, and I'm going to be looking at the NFC Central North matchup. NFC Central, showing my age. The Lions and the Bears, and Sean, when he joins us, he'll be looking at the Titans and Dolphins game that goes on Monday evening. But without further ado, let me ask you guys some questions. College basketball is upon us, okay? So we're going to have a big, semi-big card tomorrow, not as big as they normally are on a Saturday afternoon. So we're going to be gearing more and more of our work toward college basketball and the NBA, but college basketball specifically, because it seems to be the popular trend out there that we like to talk about. And quite frankly, the NBA is a crapshoot on a daily basis in terms of who's going to be available. So we're all not very fond of talking too far in advance when it comes to an NBA matchup. Having said all that, tell us something we don't know. Chime in and tell us, hey, what about this? And it's got to be from a betting perspective, folks. I don't want to hear about four guys that are averaging over 10 points a game. I can care less. All right. I'm talking about
how about how tall the Illinois starting lineup is.
Yeah. Oh, man. The guy wrote War and Peace to me. You know, I do appreciate it was a well thought out comment. And if I can get that up, I will. But more or less, he was going through the whole matchup and why Illinois won the game, and saying that Florida Atlantic, they're far superior defensively than Florida Atlantic. Well, they were that night, but you know what? Florida Atlantic still scored 88 points and shot 48% from the field, Jesse, you know? And I would venture to say if those teams played 10 times, I would say the Florida Atlantic would win 6 to 7 of those matchups. I still contend that because, as you astutely pointed out, Illinois shot 63% in that game. So, what's your take?
I'd like
buddy?
to see them do that. I'd like to see them do that again. Yeah. No, I mean, if they played again the night after, I would have bet Florida Atlantic again. You know. And giving us some astute observations after the conclusion of the game isn't quite as honorable as doing it before the game starts. You know what I mean? Our job is we got to do those before the game starts, not after it finishes.
Absolutely, Steve saying it's 3 blind mice. Okay, we're not referees, so we are sports handicappers. And Steve, if I recall, you never have anything good to say, and that's okay because.
Well, it's good that he shows up for the live show. Then he can really start firing away. Let us have it, Steve.
If you have anything, let me ask you this, Steve. Why are you calling us 3 blind mice? And give us a couple reasons why, other than just being a jerk, you know, because that seems to be your finest attribute at this point. In any event, we're talking NFL. You know, Jesse, I was looking at the NFL weather report for this weekend, and boy, oh boy, there's some games on Sunday will definitely be affected by the weather. This Indianapolis Cincinnati game that you're going to be covering, we're looking at 42% chance of showers at game time. And the big thing in that game is 17 to 19 mile an hour winds. And we talked about this yesterday, Jesse. You know, it's not so much the rain that bothers me, even when it comes to a total or picking a side, because it's the receivers know where they're going. Okay. and regardless of the rain, NFL quarterbacks' arms are strong enough to cut through the rain. Okay. The big thing is the wind conditions. And in this one, 17 to 19 mile an hour per hour winds. It affects the kicking game, whether it be the punter or the field goal kicker. It affects the passing game more or less. It diminishes what teams could do for 2 quarters of the football game in the passing game. So just your take on weather conditions, and do you keep an eye on them? And I know at times I have said in the past that it's all baked into the line, and it is, Jesse. And why I say that is if a line moves from 44 to 40, or total, I should say, you have to look at the weather conditions and see how much of that's attributed to weather, or is it attributed to somebody, a key player being out? Because I would tell you the majority of the time, NFL totals are not going to move that much unless there's some weather involved or maybe a starting quarterback that's out.
I find that you've got a better chance of taking advantage of poor weather in college games. However, with the legalization of gambling and more people getting involved, I think that this year I can't even name a game that I was able to take advantage of a weather game. And I know Kyle, also on the site with us, he's legendary for taking advantage of these weather unders. And I don't think he had as much success this season either in college. So that sort of window of opportunity is kind of shrinking. And if it's not closed entirely, the bookmakers are going to be on top of the weather before you are. That wasn't always the case. In the past, I'd done quite well being ahead of the game, betting on an under on a Tuesday when I knew that the weather on the weekend was going to be bad. But like you said, it's all baked in. If you can get in before they move that line, if the line opens at 44 and you're sitting there on a Thursday and it's still 44 and you predict it's going to go down to 41 or 40, then make a move on it then. But I'm not one to make a move on a game once the line's already been affected.
Yeah, and sort of a contrarian thing going on here because of the weather. You look at the opening total in this game, which is 40. It's now 44, despite the weather. And two things that come to mind here, Jesse, is, and we're going to talk about this game later, but I think that people are starting to catch on that Jake Browning has been more than up to the task. He's not Joe Burrow. Let's not get carried away, but he's certainly a bona fide top 10 backup quarterback the way he looks right now. Now, it's just 2 starts, right? But again, he showed a lot to me in their previous game, that upset win.
Yeah, when you started talking about the weather, and I don't have anything in my notes about the weather, but one thing I did notice about Browning was his average per attempt was well over 9 yards, so which is high. So he's throwing the ball deep downfield as well, and his accuracy was incredible. What was it? 88%, 32 of 35, 30 something ridiculous. I think he only missed 3 or 4 attempts last week. But you'd think the weather is really going to prevent him from being able to duplicate that this week. And that's something that you want me to just get into this game since we're.
Yeah, why don't we just go into it? Yes, since we've already discussed it. Right now the Bengals are a 2-point favorite. The total is 44. This did open. Let me look here, Jesse. Indianapolis did open as a 2-point favorite here. They've moved to a 2-point underdog. And again, I think, this is those early lines when we're referring to the opener. And I think it's before people witnessed just how good the Browning can be. And it influenced the odds makers to make a shift here in the line. And also there might have been some money that went Cincinnati's way early on as well. Combination of both. What do you got for us, Jesse?
Yeah, I mean, I think this line has been influenced by recency bias. I think people, bettors, public, sharps, whoever, They see Jake Browning's performance last week, very impressive, and they make a decision to back the Bengals here. But one of the things I'm looking at is the way that Cincinnati, I mean, everything that went on last week against Jacksonville, they still gave up 30 points. They've given up 30 points in 3 of their last 4 games. The one exception to that, they gave up 16 points to the Steelers, but they gave up 421 total yards of offense. The Steelers just weren't able to convert that into points. I'm not giving Cincinnati any credit for that. We've seen the Steelers do that over and over and over again. Now they're playing a Colts team that's quite decent themselves. They're on a roll. They're one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now. And you look at Jake Browning, I guess I got it right here. 354 yards, a touchdown on 32 of 37 passing. And everybody's sort of focused on that. But Gardner Minshew throws for 312 yards and a pair of touchdowns on 26 of 42 passing. And this guy's been doing it for 2-3 years in the league, consistently, really. I mean, he's been a consistent, adequate quarterback. Good, borderline good enough to be a starter, I would say. And, I just seen a much greater sample size with him. The Colts do have the better defense. The Colts defense isn't great. It's more of a middle of the road defense statistically, but only the Washington Commanders rank worse in total defense than this Cincinnati team. So, rather than trying to handicap what Jake Browning is going to do, that's not going to matter if they can't stop the Colts. And the Colts are a more well-rounded team. I like, even though Jonathan Taylor is probably not going to play in this game, the backup, Zach Moss, has been very decent this year. The Colts have been effective running the ball. And the weather, you look at the weather and who's that going to hurt? Well, a guy that averaged 9, that threw for so many yards and really 37 pass attempts, was mostly their offense was focused on the pass last week when they had some success. You take that away. Joe Mixon hasn't had the greatest year. And the kicker, they probably have the edge in kickers, Cincinnati. Yeah. And I don't think anybody's going to be kicking 50-yard field goals in this weather. So that takes away one of their other advantages. And you leave me with the more experienced quarterback, the hot team, a team that I think legit. There's talk that both these teams are still alive in the playoff race, but I think the Colts are more of a legitimate playoff contender than the Bengals. So, yeah, I'll take the Colts as a short or a short underdog now. Opened as a short favorite and now a short underdog.
Yeah, all right. So the Indianapolis Colts plus the 2 at Cincinnati. Another thing to look at here, folks, the home-away dichotomies for the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are 2-4 at home. They're 1-0 in neutral site games, and in true road games, they've gone 4-1. And they beat some pretty good teams on the road. They beat Houston. They beat Baltimore. Last I checked, both those teams have a winning record. Their only loss came at Jacksonville. And then they beat Carolina and Tennessee. Not very good teams, but still, it's never easy to win on the road, and they've been able to do so. And the big thing here to me with the wind conditions, more than the rain, okay, being 19 to 20 mile an hour winds to start the game, somewhere around 17 mile an hour in the last 2 quarters, they're predicting. That you need to lean heavily on your run game. And Indianapolis has shown the ability, not recently. I mean, 3 of their last 4 games, they haven't run the ball really well. But over the course of the season, they've shown the ability to run the ball very effectively. But both teams in this matchup have had difficulty in stopping the run. So with both teams probably leaning on the run game a lot, you could see a lot of rushing yards in this game, Jesse. I mean, Cincinnati, the bottom line is going into last week, they had surpassed 93 yards rushing just one time. And then they go to Jacksonville last week and run for 156 yards and over 5 yards per carry. So that's encouraging sign for Cincinnati. But you look at Indianapolis, their run defense, they've allowed 177, 125, 167, 138, 161, and 150 yards in their last 6 games. That's not very good, folks. So when you're talking about weather conditions, it's pretty much going to restrict these offenses for at least 2 quarters of the game each to be a run-heavy offense. That's something you want to take into consideration. Let's see if we have any questions. Where are all of you today? No questions, no comments. Everybody's brave when it's on archive, but I don't hear anything now. Come on, guys, chime in here. I know you're watching. And we never got a reply from Steve Zhang because, he just likes to create problems. Thanks for last week, guys. You're welcome, Stephen. I know you did well with all 3 of the packages you bought for $99 over the weekend for myself, Jesse, and Sean. So congratulations to you. I do not know where Sean is right now. Something must have occurred because he's extraordinarily reliable. So I hope everything is well there. But Sean's game was the Titans at the Dolphins. And it's a Monday night matchup. We got 2 Monday night games here. And boy, oh boy, these primetime matchups, Jesse, just terrible. Titans and Dolphins on Monday night, and all excited about having a doubleheader on Monday night, 2 games going simultaneously at 8:15 p.m. Eastern time. The other one I covered earlier this week, Green Bay and the Giants. And when I talked about that game, Jesse, I said I look for every reason. It was the game that I discussed with Paul Bovey and Sean, actually. And I look for every reason to use the Giants in that matchup, and I just couldn't find any. And I absolutely despise having to side with the public side. And Green Bay is going to be a public side right now. They're playing a lot better. Jordan Love has shown vast improvement. And the Giants, they're winning. They won their last 2, but look at the scores of those games. They can't put together any offense. Tommy DeVito's getting a lot of love. I don't know why. Other than the fact he's Italian and he's from New York.
Well, according to Paul, he's getting an awful lot of love.
Yeah, for that, not from the male species either. So, and Paul was a little upset about that because he grew up in Jersey, and when he was in his prime, he said that he had to work for it, and I think we all did. So, God bless Tommy DeVito. Never liked him at Syracuse. Never liked him at Illinois. I think he was an overrated quarterback coming out of high school as a 4-star. But, God bless him. He got his opportunity, and he's not killing them. That's for sure. Let's see here. We got, V2 Keith. You think the Niners are going to cover? That game scares me from a Niners perspective in terms of the cover. Let me clarify. I only say that because you can't look any better than the San Francisco 49ers did last week at Philadelphia. When you consider the fact their performance, their stats, and the opponent they were playing against, and to win by a decisive margin on the road, I think I'm looking for that proverbial letdown a little bit here. And even if they let down, they're still more than capable of beating Seattle. But this line opened at 12.5, came back down to 10.5, and now it's up to 11, Jesse. And Seattle coming off that 41-35 loss against Dallas, and they put up some pretty good numbers offensively against a good Dallas defense. What's your take?
Yeah, you want to talk letdown spots. I mean, I think there's an argument to be made that after Geno Smith throws for 334 yards, 3 touchdowns against a Dallas defense, that the Seattle offense could be due for a letdown. I think that game, you look at that game, it's kind of an anomaly, right? No punts, just continual offense. Defense was just non-existent in that game. Not your typical Dallas Cowboys performance. And Seattle coming into San Francisco, they've really struggled against San Francisco. 2 games in San Francisco last year, they lost by 18, they lost by 20. Rumor out of the Seahawks practice is Geno is limited with a groin injury. I presume that he will play, but that's probably if you want to bet against Seattle and you got a quarterback that's going to play with a groin injury, that's that could affect his play. Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard for me to want to take Seattle plus 11 on the road at San Francisco. San Francisco is just such a superior team. I think this Seattle team is really flawed, and I don't think they're as good as they looked last week. So while San Francisco looked great last week, and you could say that they're due for a letdown. I'd say the same thing about Seattle. So my lean
You
would
know,
be San Francisco.
when I say a letdown, it's just the emotion that was expended in that game. And not for nothing. I mean, the 49ers, after that 3-game losing streak that they went on, and everybody wanted to bury them and say, oh, they're not as good as they were. It happens with the best of teams, that they go through a funk mid-season, and it's how they respond. And they certainly have responded in a big way, Jesse. It's not like I love Seattle in this spot, but I'm not going to take San Francisco. I'll tell you that, to answer the user's comment there. So, yeah, I'm looking at, excuse me for being a little bit delayed here, but I'm looking at San Francisco, their last 4 games, Jesse. 34-3 against Jacksonville on the road, 27-14 against Tampa. The only game they didn't cover because they were a 14-point favorite and they won by 13. At Seattle on the 23rd of November, just 2 weeks ago, and they win that game easily, 31-13. And at Philadelphia last week, 42-19. And this is a Seattle defense that's really been flawed of late. 41 points they allowed to Dallas, 31 to San Francisco, 26 to the Washington Redskins, 37 to Baltimore. So they've had trouble stopping people. I'd be more inclined, if I was going to make a play on this, to look at what the total is and where the number is headed. I see that the total opened here at 43.5. It's up to 46.5. But of course, if I'm seeing that, I'm thinking this is going to be a public total, and they're going to be betting you over. Here's Zoe Fields, Bears upset. All right, Zoe, I mean, you're not alone when making that comment. And obviously the Lions opened at 4.5 and it came down to 3. And there's a reason why. I think a lot of people are still looking back to that matchup just a few weeks ago, Jesse, when Detroit needed a miracle comeback, scoring the last 17 points of the game in the last 3 minutes and 3 seconds to win that game. But your take, because I'm going to be covering this game, Zoe, but I want to hear, Zoe, you tell me why you think the Bears are going to pull the upset. And I'd like to comment on what your thoughts are in that regard. But Jesse, any take on this game? We're going to be discussing it shortly, but if you want to just chime in.
I hear a lot of guys in the industry are on the Bears this week, and I sort of see where they're coming from. But my personal opinion, the way you went with that Seattle game just now, I'd look at the total. I think if you think the Bears are going to be competitive, perhaps win the game, I'd look to bet the over or the team total over, because I don't want to be in bed with the Bears and trusting the Bears. If you think they're going to play well and score points, I'd lean toward the over. Of course, you want to check the weather before you make that move. But
the weather is actually good in Chicago, believe it or not. Go ahead, Jess, but I don't want to cut you off.
But yeah, my thoughts would be that a Bears team total over would be a preferred bet than just taking the Bears for me.
Yeah, the weather there is actually going to be clear. Probability of precipitation 13%, which is basically nothing for this time of year. The winds, you always have winds in Chicago. That's why they call it the Windy City. 15 miles an hour is sort of average for games that the Bears play at home. So nothing out of the ordinary there in terms of the weather in Chicago on Sunday, which is always a concern, right? Games in Chicago in December. Hello, gentlemen. Ross Benjamin, Jesse Schule. Thank you for the constant content and analysis. I missed the last live show this time of year in retail, so doing very busy. Good luck to you both. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate you've been a regular participant on these live shows, and we appreciate the support and the kind words. So, Jesse, anything you want to touch upon there? Feel free to say.
I know he's a regular in at Midday Money, so he's probably missing Sean. And if you got any idea where Sean is, he's missing in action, let us know.
I think he's in witness protection. He's not telling us something that's going on. I hope everything's okay, because this is not like him, and I'm looking at my messages and I'm not seeing anything either. Bones River. That's a cool name. Even the weather looks a little bad, do you think it can still go over due to cornerback injuries and rookies at cornerback? And what game are you referring to? I'm assuming
Cincinnati, I
Cincinnati.
think.
Yeah, I would say that based on the number where it opened and where it is now, Bones, and the fact that again, I know. Look, you're going to be able to pass the ball. Each team's going to be able to pass the ball effectively in the two quarters each they have with the wind behind their back. And I already went through the numbers. I think both teams will be able to run the ball as well. So, yeah, I think there's a distinct possibility this game can go over the total. It's not like, Jesse, you mentioned Cincinnati's defense. It's not like Indianapolis is the second coming of the 85 Bears either. So, absolutely. And Jesse, I think you chimed in on this earlier.
Yeah, no, I like the over. And, I will say, as much as I look at weather reports and make moves on potential bad weather, it often doesn't, it often disappoints. The weatherman calls for this terrible weather and, it rains for about 15 minutes and it clears up. And all of a sudden you see 50, 60 points go on the board. So, yeah. I think you want to keep an eye on that, but I would agree that I think it's going to be a high-scoring game.
All right. Are there anything good in the NBA tonight, or should I wait to get the 3-day packages tomorrow? I can tell you with me, Steven, I have a 3-game package in the NBA tonight, all NBA sides. And since April 11th of last year, I'm 48-20 with my NBA sides, which is good for 71%. I'll tell you what, Steven, because you're such a good customer, if you buy right now a 3-day package, I'll have my owner, Mr. Jim Quinn, extend you to Monday. So you'll get Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And the same thing for Jesse and the same thing for Sean, who's normally with us. Okay, so because you've been spending a lot of money and we appreciate your support and you did so well last week, I think you should get in today. Jesse, you got anything going on tonight?
Yeah, I got an NBA total. I got a college basketball total. And I've got an NHL side up for tonight.
All right, so there you have it. Again, if you want to buy from me and Jesse right now, you'll get Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And yes, I have that 3-game package going up in the NBA. Jesse just told you he has some NBA. So there you have it, Steven. Make some money, buddy, like you have been. Right, Cap, what's good? What's good is what we're talking about, sir. We got some free picks going. And Jesse looked at the Colts and the Bengals. He likes the Colts plus the 2. I'm going to be looking at the Lions and the Bears shortly. And then me and Jesse we got sidetracked a little bit with the questions, but we'll be looking at the game Sean was going to cover, which is the Titans and the Dolphins. And we'll do our best, even with a little preparation time on that contest. Let's see here. What else we got? Derek Beidleman, excuse me, Derek. Thank you for chiming in. The over-under has been so tough to predict this year, especially at this point of the season. Over and under have been a crapshoot. Well, I beg to differ. Last week, I went 6-2 in the NFL and 4-0 with my totals. So, again, I used 4 overs last week. So much was made of all the unders early on. I mean, we went through like a 10-week period, the first 10 weeks of the season, where the unders were hovering around 60%. And I said, in my experience, you'll never see that kind of lopsided margin at the end of the year with totals. Somewhere along the line, the overs are going to come back a little bit. Now, that does not mean I go through and start betting every game over. No, but I picked my spots. I found the right 4 games. They all went over. They all went over mostly with ease. It's never that easy, right? But, Jesse, your take on the totals this year in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's time to, especially like Monday Night Football, primetime overs. What did they had 11-1? Monday Night Football was 11-1 to the under as of like. Yeah. So I mean, as long as they keep on coming out with these low numbers, I mean, you want to look at the number and you want to say, okay, well, let's say for example, if it's just for example, Packers Bears playing Monday Night Football. The total's at 42.5. You look at the last 10 Packers-Bears matchups. What were those numbers? If you're seeing 45s, 46.5s in previous meetings or in previous games, you can get a sense that this number is a little lower than it would normally be based on the fact that we've seen an under trend longstanding, and that gives you some value betting the other way and taking those overs on those games. Of course, you want to decipher whether or not the offenses are going to have success against the defenses and look at the matchups and the weather and all that stuff on top of that. But as far as a pure value standpoint, the fact that unders had been hitting early in the season should provide you with better value on the overs. And another thing to keep in mind is when you have teams that are already eliminated from the playoffs and are playing for, jockeying for lottery picks in the draft, their defenses are not going to show up from on a weekly basis. So that's another thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, and another thing in the NBA when it comes to totals, when it gets down to the last 4 weeks of the year, when two teams are playing each other that have been either mathematically eliminated from the playoff race or there's a high percentage probability neither are going to make the playoffs, look using the over in those games. Right along the same lines of what Jesse just said, it just the intensity level drops. And when the intensity level drops, it's mostly on the defensive side of the ball because NBA players, I don't know any of them where the offensive intensity drops because they want to score. And they want to score quick and they want to pad their numbers and they want to negotiate a contract if they're in the free agent part of their off season. So something to keep in mind there. Derek, how do you feel about same game parlays? Should they be avoided? Derek, and I'm going to let Jesse speak on this too. I say that you eliminate all parlays, okay, because they're the biggest sucker plays in the world. Just think about this, okay? If you bet a 3-team parlay, you hit 2 out of 3, you lose. And guess who wins the money? The bookmaker or the sports book, okay? And sign me up anywhere for where I can hit 1 out of 3 and make money. And that's what we're doing. It's just not a very smart way to go about it. Now, I get a lot of you out there have a very small bankroll and you're looking to maximize your profits with a small bankroll. I get that. But betting parlays is not the way to do it. You're going to have to grind it out, as we call it, right, Jesse? So I'll let you take it away on that subject. I think you won't say much different than what I'm saying, but you never know.
No, I mean, for the most part, I agree. You don't see me betting same game parlays or parlays. However, I've written articles about it in the past, and I think that there is exceptions to the rule. Ross might not agree with me on this one, but I think if you're one of the things to keep in mind is I know guys, and there is guys out there that I truly believe take advantage of certain parlay markets, certain same game parlays, by looking through what the bookmaker's offering, scouring through thousands of bets on offer, and finding that one mistake that the bookmaker makes. But in order to do that, you have to be you really have to be sharp. And for your average bettor that, should I make parlays, same game parlays? No, because you're not going to be able to find those mistakes that the bookmakers make. But for a very seasoned veteran, I think they can spot some of these and do well with them. But that will only result in them making these type of bets very infrequently when they come available. I've always said parlays, if you're going to do a parlay, it should be 2 events that correlate, like a side and total in the same game. Hypothetically, Ross, you probably remember a decade or 2 decades ago, most books wouldn't let you parlay a side and total in the same game because the event could correlate. You got to score a certain amount of points to push the total over. So if you've got a big favorite that has to score enough points to cover that total, they wouldn't let you parlay those 2 events. These days they'll let you parlay anything, and those correlating parlays, if they let you make them, can be okay in my opinion occasionally.
Yeah, one of our sponsors, PointsBet, they don't allow you to use same game parlays. The last I checked, so it depends on the sports book. I could tell you this, and let me get the gentleman's name to make sure. Derek, here's something to look at, okay? And I'm going to give you some homework to do, Derek. I did a study a few years ago on college football same game parlays, and I'll tell you what I came up with. And this is based on betting $100 per parlay. Okay, you're going to bet two same game parlays in the same game. Now you say, why would you do that? Well, hear me out. Anytime the point spread is more than 33% of the total, you play $100 on the favorite in the over and $100 on the underdog in the under. And if you hit about 60% of those, so to 65%, which I found is not that hard to do, you're going to make a profit of $130 or $135. Let me see, $160 every time one of those come in. Because if you hit one for 260, you're going to lose the other for 100. It's $160 profit. Now, having said that, you're going to have times or weeks where both of those are going to lose in the same game, and you'll have several of those. But what I looked at over a 4-year period of time, it was a very profitable venture. But back then, it was not worth my time because even the local books that I was using back then, they stopped me from doing it because they saw that what I was doing after a while was making money on a consistent basis. That would be the only way I would entertain a parlay in particular, okay, or a parlay strategy. So look at it's more toward college football, not the NFL, because you very rarely get a point spread that's more than 33% of the total in the NFL. College football, especially in the month of September and early October, when you're in the non-conference portion of the schedule, you get tons of games that qualify in that regard. So something to keep an eye on. The Truth. Hey, buddy. Where are you here? Trying to get you up here. The Truth. I'm on the Bears, guys. I'm fading my own team. So you're fading the Lions. I thought this was Detroit, Lenny, but I guess we came to the conclusion it's not. Let me cover that. Let me cover that game right now. Let me get to that game right now, and we'll see what I have to say in that game. And I got to get my notes up here, and here we go. All right, so the Lions and Bears. The Lions right now are a 3-point favorite. The total in this contest is 43. The Lions opened as a 4.5-point favorite. To my surprise, the Bears are the ones that are getting a lot of love in public betting. Both the volume of tickets bet and the money are over 60% on the Bears, which is very surprising to me. Thus, I think this is a money-generated move. And why I think that's occurred is quite simply the first time these guys met on November 19th, as I alluded to, Detroit was behind in that game 26-14 with less than 4 minutes to play. They proceeded to score 17 points in the last 3 minutes and 6 seconds of the game and come away with a miracle 31-26 win. But they failed to cover as an 8-point favorite. So this is the fault of a lot of public bettors, just not in this situation or this particular matchup. But I think a lot of people have short memories, and that's entrenched in their mind right now because everybody thought the Bears were going to pull off a big upset in that contest against the Lions on the road, and it didn't come to fruition. But the Lions, look, here's the thing. The Lions have been a road favorite 4 times this year, and including last week at New Orleans, where they won by 5 as a 4-point favorite. They're 4-0 straight up in ATS as a road favorite this year. The last 3 seasons, the Chicago Bears are 0-5 straight up in ATS as a division home underdog. And if you go back even further than that, the Bears are 0-7 straight up in ATS in their last 7 as a division underdog, division home underdog, let me specify, and 1-10 straight up in ATS in their last 11 as a division home underdog. So they really don't have a good track record of covering games as a home underdog within the division. Now, there was a time there the Bears were a good play as an underdog of between like 3.5 to 6, but that's curtailed over the last 3 years. The Lions, again, they have a lot to play for. They're 9-3 right now. They have a stranglehold on the division right now, but I think right now they'd like to get their seeding improved and possibly get one of the top 2 seeds in the NFC and have a bye week. Or they wouldn't have a bye week, would they, unless they're the number 1 seed in this format. I forgot about that. But in any event, get a couple home games. And when it comes playoff time, at least the first one. All right, so Chicago off a 12-10 upset win at Minnesota last week. Detroit off that 33-28 win at New Orleans and covered as a 4-point favorite. NFL division away favorites like Detroit that are coming off a non-division away favorite ATS cover. Again, Detroit covered at New Orleans last week as a favorite, and they're playing after game 6 of the season, which obviously we're at that point. And they're playing a team with revenge, like the Bears, who lost that game 31-26 at Detroit a few weeks ago. And that team allowed 20 points or fewer the previous game, and they did. They won 12-10. The division away favorites in this exact situation, there was only 11 times this situation has occurred since 1984, and the division away favorite has gone 11-0 straight up in ATS in that time frame, and won by 17.5 points per game. So not only have they won and covered, they won decisively. So I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions here, and I'm going to buck public trends here, Jesse. I'm going to take Detroit minus the 3 over Chicago.
Yeah, what do you think of do you have any thoughts on the total, Ross? Do you think that for people that think the Bears are going to score some, if you think the Bears are going to win, you think they could score some points?
Yeah, I mean, it's Detroit's defense is very good against the run, but they're susceptible in the air. And that's really not the Bears' strength. That's the only thing that would scare me. I'd have to go back to the first matchup if you give me a second and take a look at what was done by both teams offensively. Obviously, it was 31-26. It was an offensive game. But in that contest, let me see, Chicago ran the ball for 183 yards, threw for another 151, so 334 yards, not great. Here's the thing with Detroit, which aided Chicago in that game in terms of scoring, is the Lions turned the ball over 4 times, and they still won that game. But the Lions had 338 yards in that game. So it's not like either team was marching up and down the field. So I wouldn't be opposed to the over, but it's not a game. I'm not going to use the under, that's for sure. And like I said,
the Bears team total is 19.5.
Yeah.
And I think the Bears need to score 20 if you want to have a hope of covering against the Lions. So
yeah.
I guess
if you like the Bears, yeah. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I like the Bears, but I see where people are coming from. But I feel like if you like the Bears, you got to think they're scoring 20 points. Team total over, at least the team total over 19.5 allows you to cash that, and the Bears, lose 27-20.
Yeah, I just think Detroit's the better team. I think when you could win a game in the manner in which they did 2 weeks ago, you're in the opponent's head. And I also think that, if you could win a game being at a -3 turnover margin in the game like Detroit was and turn the ball over 4 times and still come away with a win, that speaks volumes to me. Now, Detroit has set only 338 yards of total offense in that game. I think a lot can be attributed to the fact that they turned the ball over so much. And part of the reason why Chicago was able to score 26 points in that game, despite just 330 yards or so, was the fact that they did create 4 turnovers. So we'll see. If the same type of thing happens where both the teams turn the ball over and create short fields for their offense, it takes on a whole new light. But again, you make a good point, Jesse. If you like Chicago, you better hope that they're going to at least have to score 20 points in the game for you to get the cover. And if you like them to win, even more so. Michael, let me get this right. Bukowicki. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Michael. First of all, I want to say I believe your stats, you're up front. The only thing is a lot of players don't have the resources or books available to shop. That being said, sometimes we can't get down at I'm not sure what the end of that. Let me see here. And we get a worse number. Okay. We lose, you win. That sequence, the 1-loss record. You know that happens a lot. It doesn't happen a lot, okay? Let's not get carried away. It does happen. It happens with us, okay? Me and Jesse, who are part of sportscapping.com, and we're part of sportsmemo.com and pricksandparleys.net. We're part of all those sites as along with gamblersworld.net. There's occasions throughout the course of the year where we have a discrepancy in our record. It's off a game or two in win-loss column. That's exactly what occurs because we had got one line at one place, one line at another place, and there's a discrepancy. Now, when you say it happens a lot, we definitely know it happens, Michael, okay? We're not losing sight of that. We never have lost sight of that. But when you say it happens a lot to me is 20, at least 20% minimum, and it's not happening 1 out of every 5 games. It happens. And
I'd say
I guess
3 to 5% of the time. If you're really getting bad lines, you're going to get screwed 3 to 5% of the time.
Yeah. So again, I think this was more prevalent back in the day when local bookies were taking action. And why I say that, I say it from experience. I know for a fact that some of the local guys in town here that I have exposure to and I had worked under at one particular moment in time in my youth would know when certain guys called that I would have to jack the total up by a point or two because this guy was an overbetter. I would have to jack the point spread up or two because no matter who the Cleveland Browns were playing that week, they were going to take them. I would have to jack the point spread up a point or two when the Buffalo Bills were playing. And even in the worst of times with the Bills, there are guys that just blindly come in every week and bet their favorite team. So, yes, your point is well taken. I'm glad you brought that up. That does occur. But at the end of the day, we have to go by the line we got when we report our records. So, yes, you'll find with us when it comes to credit, okay, if somebody questions a pick in terms of we won by a half a point and they say they lost by a half a point and they got to push, we always give the customer a benefit of the doubt and we will extend you credit for that pick. Because obviously at our site, if you don't know already, that's gamblersworld.net. If you don't win and you don't make a profit, whether it be a single game or multi-game daily package or a subscription plan or 30 days or fewer, we credit your account the exact amount of your purchase price. So if there's a gray area there, which is the difference between a win and a loss or a win and a push or a loss and a push, we certainly always will give you the benefit of the doubt in that regard. So I hope that answers that question.
One more thing in regards to that, though, Ross. I think I forgot to mention this. I mean, one of the things is if you're a subscriber and you're subscribing to one of us and you get the picks emailed to you as soon as we make the picks, you're gonna be able to get the line. You should be able to get the line most of the time, the same line as we get if you make the pick right away. If you wait until noon the next day, or if you wait until Sunday morning when we're giving you these picks on a Wednesday or a Thursday, you're very often going to get an inferior line. So it's really key to make those picks as soon as you get the information from us, and then you will get the same lines and you will have the same records. And that's why it's better to be a subscriber than it is to be a pick buyer. If you roll out a bet at noon and go and buy somebody's game of the year for that day, you're probably not going to get the same line they got when they placed that bet.
Yeah, that's like with Sean and yourself, because you guys put things in early a lot because you feel like you're getting a great number early in the week. And some guys are real good at it. And Jesse and Sean certainly are in that regard, and their record reflects that. I've never been one to get down too early, but I'm getting down early. Okay. And I could tell you, it used to be a nightmare back in the day when you put out your NFL on a Friday, and the majority of people outside of the state of Nevada were all using illegal bookmakers in town. And these illegal bookmakers wouldn't put out lines on the NFL till Sunday morning. But there should be no excuse in that regard. You know, Again, folks, if you're using an illegal bookmaker out there, and it's not intended toward disrespect toward anybody, and I'm not trying to cut anybody's throat in their business, whether it be illegal or illegal. Even though I would say there's no reason why you should not be betting with a sports book right now. And the only reason
Preferably
if you're
2 or
betting,
3 of them.
yeah. And the only reason that I would think that anybody is still betting with a local bookmaker is because these guys are giving you credit. And that's where you get yourself in trouble. Because at the end of the day, you only can bet what you have in your account at the sports book. And if when you run out of money, you have to re-up. So nobody's giving you credit there. It's so easy when you're down $300 on a Sunday to make a $300 bet to try to chase your money, get even when you lost $300 betting $50 a game. It's you would, if you had to physically go up to a counter at a casino in Las Vegas, sports book in Las Vegas, you would have to take the money out of your pocket and give it to the teller. Okay. If you had to do that, you would think twice about making a bet that's way over your head that you're not used to making, or chasing your money in that regard. Now, I'm not saying that still doesn't occur. It does, okay? But again, I would highly advise, folks, it's now 2023. We're going into 2024 very shortly. The majority of states in this union are legalized for sports betting, and take advantage of that. It's not only for, it's for your own good, is what I'm trying to say. Derek says, good tips, guys. Thanks. You're very welcome, Derek. And I appreciate you, my man. Yeah, this is the same comment. So, guys, come on. It's getting near the end of the show. If you want to comment, if you want a question, let us know. All right, Jesse, let's look at the game that Sean was going to cover. And that's the Tennessee Titans at the Miami Dolphins on Monday night. The Dolphins right now are a 13-point favorite, and rightfully so. The total in this game is 46.5. This doesn't leave a lot to be desired for me. I don't know. Laying 13 is a lot of points, but again, the in the NFL especially. But I guess the line is justified. You know, when you look at the state of both of these teams. Miami coming off an impressive win last week, and also Tennessee coming off a win, if I'm not mistaken, Jesse, because I didn't have time to look at this game prior to going. No, they lost Indianapolis last week, 31-28 in overtime. But 381 yards of offense, but that's against Indianapolis. They gave up 355. And again, the Dolphins went to Washington last week, won 45-15. The week before at the Jets, 34-13. So both of those games were on the road. Anything that you could add of substance to this matchup, Jesse?
I was just looking at the player prop market because I wanted to say fade Derrick Henry, take the under Derrick Henry rushing yards. But it looks like I'm not the only one thinking along those lines, because his over-under for rushing yards is only 57.5. That's a pretty low number. I probably won't touch that. But I think this is just a tough spot for the Titans. I think that loss to Indianapolis is kind of a dream crusher scenario. Derrick Henry got a lot of work in that game. I think 24 carries, 120 yards. I mean, he had a big game. Apparently, he was banged up at the end of the game. I think we've seen the best of Derrick Henry. His yards per carry have gone down the last few seasons. There's a lot of mileage on that body. This is the time of year. We get into the tail end of the season. Running backs, guys his age, with all that mileage on them, they start to wear down. We've seen it. It in the past 2-3 years, it's quite frequently we've seen Derrick Henry sort of get banged up, and I don't want to cheer for guys to get hurt, but I would say we probably don't count on a big performance from Derrick Henry here. The Dolphins pretty good against the run. They're only giving up 96 rushing yards per game. Big number, but I couldn't take the Titans.
Yeah, I think Derrick Henry, still a great running back, but I think you're going to see his numbers diminish quite a bit over the next couple of years because this guy's not only a great running back, but he's been a workhorse. You know, he's the bell cow. He's been carrying the ball 20 to 25 times a game consistently when he's available and healthy, which hasn't always been the case. And there's a reason why there's been a lesser value put on running backs in the NFL. It's been widely documented. Is because their existency and their productivity doesn't last as long as any other position on the field because of the beating that they take. So saw some dissension last week on the sideline in that Indianapolis overtime loss for Tennessee when the rookie quarterback Will Levis and DeAndre Hopkins, the star wide receiver, exchanged some unpleasantries. So never like to see that, and especially you don't like to see that when a team is struggling like the Titans are. This is a Titans team that's been terrible on the road, Jesse. They're 4-1 actually at home, but on the road they've gone 0-7, and not only 0-7, but they failed to cover 6 of those 7 games. They only averaged 12.3 points per game on the road, less than 250 yards of offense, and they're getting outscored by 11.1 points per game. Which isn't, when you consider the fact they're 0-7 and 1-6 ATS, it's not like that minus 11 per game is a huge number. I would expect it to be more along the lines of 13 or 14. But at the end of the day, it looks to me like they just get worn down. They're only giving up 362 yards per game on the road, even though they have that terrible record. But their offense isn't sustaining drives, and they wear down late in games. And I think that's what we're going to see here. And if you want me to share a NFL betting angle, I certainly would. Any time you have a home favorite of 10.5 or more, with a team that has a winning record like Miami, again, a home favorite, just a favorite of 10.5 or more, away or home, doesn't matter. And they have a winning record on the season like Miami does, and they're facing a team with a win percentage of between 250 to 400, and that team is coming off a loss like Tennessee is. And again, Tennessee is 4-8, so their win percentage is 333, fits right in the middle there. Those teams that are favorites of 10.5 or more in that exact situation have gone 35-10 against the spread since 2014. So that's quite a big sample size, and 77.8% win percentage and that's unusual, I could tell you, for a double-digit favorite to find an angle like that in the NFL. So a lot of things working against the Tennessee Titans there, Jesse.
Yeah, it's just such a tough game to come back from as well. That was a particularly tough loss for them, and I think that sets them up for a world of hurt here in this game against Miami.
Yes, it does. So again, folks, we appreciate you all chiming in and participating today. We got time for 1 or 2 more questions. If anybody's out there that would like to chime in.
Stop Geo wants to know if we've got a lean on the Army-Navy total.
Well, what is it, 28 now, if I'm not mistaken? What's the total? Let me look at that real quickly. Army-Navy right now, the total is 28. I just can't pull the trigger on a total that low when it comes to betting the under. I will tell you that the service academies, I think over the last 5 to 7 years or so, don't quote me on the exact amount of time span, there's been an extremely high percentage of unders. But now we're getting into territory where even the service academies haven't seen. That's a total of 28. And Jesse, if you want to chime in, feel free to do so.
I mean, I don't have any strong feeling one way or the other, but if what you're asking is, what are you going to bet $20 or $100 on for entertainment because you're going to watch the game, I'd say just take the over out of spite. And what I'm waiting to see, and this isn't expert handicapping analysis, this is just me as a fan. I'm really looking forward to the day, Ross, when we see one of these totals sitting at 28.5, 28, 20, these totals under 30 in these Iowa games, and we see a team winning 7-0 in the final 2 minutes of the fourth quarter, and their opponent ties it up 7-7. It goes to overtime, and both teams score a touchdown on the first possession of overtime. All of a sudden, it's 14-14, and that game goes from 7-0 with 2 minutes left to 31 points scored in an overtime game, and it goes over. That's one of the scenarios of how a 7-0 game can still go over when your number is 28.5. Yeah, I can't bet under 28. I'd go over just to spite the bookmakers.
Yeah. I mean, again, the service academies playing each other. You're going to see maybe 10 passes total combined between the two. If history repeats itself, although Army throws the ball a little more, Navy says that they were going to make some adjustments and implement the passing game a little bit more this year. They have to a degree, but nothing that's noteworthy. And there is a long history of low scoring games, but 28 is a whole different territory. And I would steer clear of that. I'm going to steer clear of that game. I can't tell you the last time that I actually gave out anything in the Navy-Army game or bet any of my hard-earned money on a Navy-Army game in recent years. L comes in. Hey, L, it's where you been, buddy? Hello, gents. Sorry I'm late. Where's Higgs? We got an APB out for Sean right now. I'm not sure where he is, and I'm a little concerned, to be quite honest with you, because
he's due for a wellness check, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Miners don't cover this week. Go against the money. We'll be on San Francisco. Go the other way. I'm assuming you're meaning Niners don't cover this week. Go against the money. It will be on San Francisco. Go the other way. I agree with you, Gerard, for what it's worth. Birds have not beaten Dallas away since 2017. Fully aware of that. Again, my concern with Philadelphia right now, I think too much is being made of Jalen Hurts, and San Francisco developed a blueprint and how to stop him. And certain Philadelphia writers coming out this week and saying he should be benched. Come on, people, slow down. I mean, Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. He's a top 5 quarterback in this league. All right. The kid's a winner. He won at Alabama. He won at Oklahoma, and he's won at Philly. So stop. It's like listening to all the critics of Josh Allen, all the turnovers. Well, you know what? He's also got the most touchdowns in the NFL this year, combined running and passing, or right up there. So give me a break. All right. Anything else that we want to address here? That's it.
I'll answer Michael when he says throughout. He meant throughout the year, and what I said applies to that, Michael. If you're a subscriber, you bet those picks as soon as you get those picks. You should be able to get pretty much the same line every time. It's when you wait on it or you get the picks late, you're a pick buyer, that's when you're going to get inferior lines.
How much do you put into capping games when teams come off a meaningful game and looking ahead? I put a lot into that. It's not, again, I want to clarify this, and I'm going to continue to clarify it going forward. And I think Jesse feels the same way about this. I don't use any no-brainer theory, folks. So to say that every time a team comes off a big win and they're playing an opponent the following week or in the next game that isn't nowhere near the caliber of the team they just played, or they're coming off a rivalry game and they're playing against a non-conference opponent the next game, or a non-division opponent in the NFL the next game, it's something that's a huge part of my arsenal when it comes to handicapping, but it's not the sole reason why I take a game. It's might be a majority of the reason. And again, it's not an automatic play for me. There are no automatic plays for me. I can only speak for myself. But yes, it's a good question. And yes, you should always take into consideration when you deem a spot to be a letdown spot. Okay. Like I was just saying with San Francisco, coming off 3-4 blowout wins in a row, especially last week against Philadelphia, where they really laid the hammer down on the road against the Eagles. and you can't play much better than that. Now they're coming home to face the Seattle team as a double-digit favorite that they beat by 15 points just on the road just a couple weeks ago. Yeah, those situations I look at, but I need to see more. And Jesse mentioned some of the flaws with Seattle. Why, even though that situation might seem entertaining to take, there are some situations where teams like Seattle are flawed enough where you just say, you know what, I ordinarily would like to use a reason to take Seattle, but I'm leery because of X, Y, and Z that Jesse just said. Jesse, you want to chime in there?
Yeah, I mean, I've said it over and over again. My process is stacking up reasons to bet on a team and also attempting to stack up reasons why not to. And when you got one pile that's so much bigger than the other and all, the reasons to bet on a team should look something like this, right? Yeah. A stack of different things.
There's my notes on the game.
Not just one situation, not one player or one matchup. Oh, this team can't defend the run, and this team's got a good running back. That's one thing. I want to see dozens of things that go in my favor, and then also look at things that go against me. And when there's significantly more things that are in my favor, and not so many things that are going against me, that's when I want to make a play. But yes, we certainly look at situational handicapping, sandwich spots, look ahead spots, let down spots, dream crusher scenarios, must win games. Did I forget anything, Ross?
No, you covered just about the majority of them anyway. Again, I'm going to use the analogy as we're like prosecutors. Okay. The sports books are like cops. The sports books put out a line. Cops have some evidence. They go to the prosecutor with it, and the prosecutor says, you know what? In all likelihood, this guy is guilty, but you're missing this, that, and the other thing for me to make a solid case against him. It's the same thing that applies. Again, if you didn't see my sheet before, Jesse does basically the same thing, folks. Hopefully you can see that. That's just my notes on the Lions and the Bears. This is what I do for the majority of games on the card. And for that reason alone. Now, sometimes I get two lines down and say, I don't like this game at all. I can't make a case for either team. And when I do like a game, I can rest assured when I do like a game, it's a full sheet of notes just like this. And the majority of those are going into my analysis when you buy my pick online or my analysis when I give out a free pick on this show. And the same thing applies toward Jesse. That's why, folks, it's not always about the winning and losing when it comes to our theme here of making you a smarter sports bettor today than yesterday. Because if you're listening to our analysis and you're listening to our conversations like we're having right now in sports betting strategy, or you take the time to read the analysis we give you with our picks, it may not work this time, but it may be something that's etched in your mind going forward. And nobody wins all the time, but I could tell you we win more than we lose. So if we give you something that you could use in further reference, it's more power to you. Now, if you're just interested in looking at picks and nothing beyond that, like some of you at the beginning stages of our show, and we don't see that happen quite often anymore, just want free picks. Come on, guys, just get to the free picks. We don't want to hear anything else. Well, the people who are still with us right now are smart enough to know that they could pick something up on a daily basis. We do shows 6 times a week, and I could be rest assured, folks, if you listen carefully enough to any one of us or all of us, you're going to pick something up from at least one of us that you're going to use in your handicapping arsenal going forward. Jesse, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I just want to say that we obviously have a pretty sharp audience because they asked some pretty intelligent questions, and I will commend them for that.
All right, Ewokies.
Ewoks.
Okay. Ewok. Oh, that's one of those Star Trek names, right? Is that what it is? Always appreciate one.
Something like that.
Yeah, I deal with reality, guys. You know what I mean? Star Trek and all those. I don't deal with that stuff. So when you hit me up with these names, I defer to my younger guys like Jesse and Sean to bail me out like they always do. Always appreciate both of your time and advice. Well, we appreciate you too, Ewoks. Is that right, Jess? Ewoks? Yeah. So
Ewoks are from Star Wars, Ross. So, I think the first movie came out in like 1979 or something.
yeah, yeah. I used to watch it when Captain Kirk was in Spock and them guys. Now you
No,
guys are
no,
going to
no.
laugh.
I'm talking Luke Skywalker and Chewbacca and
Oh,
the
Luke
Millennium
Skywalker. Oh, I
Falcon.
never.
Yeah.
You and Sean got to come back to reality. Anyway, any NFL games that the spread is tight where the money line is a better value. Look, here's what I always avoid. And Jesse, he's a little broader when it comes to this. So I'm going to let him give his theory on this because his is a little different than mine. Okay. I don't like to go beyond 135, laying 135 on a money line. If they're going to give me points in a game, I will never pass down the points and say, give me the one plus 135 or plus 120. I would never do that because if they're going to give you points, you're foolish not to take the points, folks. You automatically put the odds are 110 to 1. You're increasing your odds to win even more when you're just taking a money line underdog. Now, does it pay handsomely when you do? Absolutely. But I would think that more times than not, that would backfire on you more than it will help you. Now, the other thing is in terms of money line favorites, like I said, I don't like to use minus 135 or I like to use 135 or less for a money line favorite. And a lot of times that falls within the point spread of 2.5 or less. Sometimes I'll entertain even going as high as 140 if I really like a side and I don't want to take the risk of losing by a half a point at 2.5. But yes, any time that I can get a favorite of 2.5 or less on the point spread that they're only laying 135 or less on the money line, I will always use the money line favorite. Okay. That's my theory. In terms of how it applies to this week, again, this isn't to say that anything out there right now that's Kansas City minus 1.5 against Buffalo, for example. That's not to say I'm going to take Kansas City because they're minus 1.5 and I get 120 or 125. I have to have that evidence sheet that supports everything. And then if that evidence sheet supports the Kansas City Chiefs, for example, I'll lay the 125 or 130 with them as opposed to laying the 1 or 1.5. And a lot of people are opposed to that, Jesse. And my answer to that is if you do the math and 1 out of every 11 times by going to that theory, it earns you a win. And when I say that, there's a theory that I use. I have the mathematical equation. And you know what? I'll address it the next time when I can be more specific. But something around 1 out of every 11 times, if you use the money line favorite, and it ends up being a 1 or 2 point game where you wouldn't have covered on the point spread, you're going to come out ahead by doing that. But Jesse, anyway, I know that you like to go a little more than I do.
Yeah, I mean, in extreme cases, I'll go up to like 175. A 3.5 point favorite, and I'll lay a big price to get them on the money line. And this isn't something I do every week. This is in extreme cases, but I'm very comfortable in the 140, 150 range. One formula you can use is in a line of 2.5. If a team's a 2.5 point favorite, there's 5 half points in a line of 2.5. How much would it cost you to buy those points? You weigh that with how much the price on the money line. Are you getting a good deal that way? I will tell you, Ross, that about 7 years ago, the manager at Covers, when I was on Covers, came to me and said, don't bet on point spread sports on the money line anymore. It's not sharp. You got to stop doing this. I argued with him. He didn't want to listen to me. About 6 months later, I sent him a detailed spreadsheet of all my money line plays and showed him it was actually the single most profitable strategy that I employ, and I was hitting something like 70% with college basketball money line plays in the neighborhood of minus 120 to minus 150. And, he said that's fine, but he said it'll catch up with you in the end. And that was 7 years ago. It's been 7 more years. It hasn't caught up to me yet. I think if done right, you can bet short lines, take the money line instead of the point spread. And another thing to keep in mind is when we're selling individual picks, even if in the long term you're better off laying the 2.5, it's not necessarily better for the guy buying that pick, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because he's only getting that pick. He's not, if he subscribed to you for the whole year, sure. But if he's just getting that pick, he needs that pick to win. And if you can increase the probability of that pick being a winner without too much liability, I feel some sort of responsibility to do that when I think it's reasonable to do so.
The only thing that I would frown upon when you're getting into the 160 and 170 range, I guess on a site like ours is where it could backfire on you, Jesse. Because you go to like a sports capping that everything is based on $100 a game, 1 unit per play. When you start getting into 3, 4, and 5 and 10 unit plays, and you're laying 180 and you miss on one, it really puts you behind, and it's a huge makeup territory. That's the only thing I would say. Having said that, you need to hit a high percentage of those plays anyway, or you shouldn't be using them. I could tell you right now, I have made 42 NBA money line picks since March 16th of 2021, and all of them have been 135 or less. This is documented by Sports Capping. I've gone 33-9 with those picks. That's good for 79%. And my dime players are up $22,590 with those picks. Now, not everybody could bet a dime, but if you want to put that into perspective, if you're a $100 game player, that's $2,259. So, again, there's nothing worse to me than betting a team that's minus 1, 1.5, 2, or 2.5, and not covering the game and still winning.
Particularly in college basketball, it's a really bad idea in college. There he is. You slept in.
I was like, I did my stuff and I was like working. My washing machine was giving me a hard time yesterday. So I'm like, all right, let me delete Allie with this. And then I was in the kitchen. I was outside because I'm digging a hole and I just totally forgot just everything. I didn't even know where I am.
Well, we've been digging. You've been digging a hole with us too, because you put us right behind. We had to take your game and do everything. I was ready to dig you a hole because I was worried about you.
I didn't even have my phone next to. I just got Jesse's thing. I'm like, I'm on my way. I didn't realize it was an hour ago. Like, you didn't call. Normally you'd call or something. Why wouldn't you even call?
I don't know, because we started. We waited for you to chime in. I figured you would come in sooner or later. Next time this happens, the only hole you're going to dig is your own. We're taking you out in the freaking desert. Like, you're going to dig your own hole.
So the builders built a like a French drain kind of thing. So it goes out off my property, like down a hill. So I was like inspecting it like a couple weeks ago, and like the city comes or whoever, and they cut the grass. Well, I guess when the tractors like took the top off the thing, so now I got to like replace it, and I don't want to. I got to keep it closed up so I don't. All I need is like a boa constrictor or something climbing in and going through the pipe and getting in my attic or something through my gutter. So I'm like out there. I'm like, oh my goodness. And then I just looked at my phone. I'm like, what time's it? And I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. And I saw Jesse's thing. I'm like, is my ringer on? Why don't I get notifications for the show?
We're gonna have a new feature on the show, because we go through this before we go on the air every time, and now Sean's carrying it over to the show. It's called Sean's Dilemma of the Day, because there's not a day that goes by where Mr. Higgs doesn't come in with some kind of dilemma. And
it's life, bro. Sorry, Ross, that I have things happening. The good news is the washer is working. So whatever was the problem was yesterday with the washing machine is fine.
I'm glad of that. That makes my day. Now I could sleep well now, knowing that your washer works.
And I said to her, I was like, I really don't want to feel like going to buy a new washing machine. Like I was like, all right, well, whatever. President's Day sales coming, I'll go get a new one. But I mean, it's like 2 years old. Like, come on, it shouldn't be breaking
All
down.
right.
Whatever it was, it works now. We're
DT
trying.
plus the points. This is a real good question. This opt-out transfer portal has made my capping of bowl games exponentially harder. I like to bet them early, but have found it difficult. Missouri was one at +9. How has it changed yours? It's definitely changed mine, DT, and you really got to do your research. And I do not give out bowl games, especially not bowl games that have significance. Now, the college football playoffs, even the New Year's Six bowl games are a little more true to form in that regard. Even the New Year's Six bowl games, though, you're going to have some opt-outs. But the college football playoffs are the only postseason games right now that I will make an early commitment on, because nobody's going to opt out of a college football playoff game. Nobody of significance anyway, because it's a grand stage. They could earn them even more money as a number one draft choice next year, or improve their draft status by playing on such a huge platform. But guys, I'll let you talk. Sean, you especially, and Jesse like to put games out early, but I know that we've discussed this off air. What's your feeling you could share with the audience in that regard? Sean?
Well, I said I was going to take it easy this year. I'm like, you know what? I'm done with these bowl games. Last year I was 500. Yeah, well, I unloaded on 22 already, so that's out the window.
Okay. So, in other words,
I got 22. Yeah, I just think I don't know. I feel good about my games. I think.
Well, let me ask you a question in regards to what this gentleman has just brought up, which is a very astute point, because it's something we've had to deal with over the last 2 to 3 years, so we didn't have to do in years past. When you're making these 22 bowl picks early, I'm sure that you're going through these games and you're seeing the possibility of some major players that might be opting out. Or no. Let me ask you that. I don't know how you do it otherwise.
That's handicapping, isn't it? I mean, you're making a prediction on what's going to happen. That's
exactly. Who's going to leave? Who's not going to leave? Now, I was liking Missouri anyway. I figured Ohio State would be depressed they didn't get into the playoff, right? That they think they're better than Washington or whatever. So that was a team I was going to fade anyway. Now you have a bunch of guys sit outs, added bonus for me. I have a Missouri +2. I have a money line on Missouri. Now they're a favorite. I still think that's a team that the guys, even if somebody upset, the rest of the team is going to be pumped up to play that kind of game. You have teams that are just excited. Rutgers is a game I have. Like, why wouldn't I take? Nobody's opting out of Rutgers, and whoever stays, they'll be pulling people out of the stands to go beat up Miami at Yankee Stadium. Who Miami? Their quarterback left, and that's a down year for them. Who are they excited to be playing in the Bronx? Day before Christmas or whenever that game is. I mean, no.
Syracuse against South Florida is another one. I mean, I don't know if you use that game, but
I'll tell you, I got South Florida. I'm on South Florida guy. It's a good spot for South Florida.
Syracuse has already had 4 players opt out because of the coaching. We don't know if the starting quarterback's going to play. If he doesn't play, it's going to be the tight end that they were using in the wing T offense at the end of the year.
Any kind of like a midi major kind of school I'm going to look at. That's going to be pumped up to be there versus a bigger name brand school. That's a big name. Whether they're good or not, it's still a big name, and the players are going to leave to go somewhere else. And other spots, you could look at some totals, right? Like you think guys are going to sit out. Why not grab some unders and like the Florida State game? Like that would have been a game you want to take an under anyway with, just based on Florida State as a defense. There's my guy, Gio. Florida State's got a defense. They're going to want to come out and play, right? They're embarrassed. They got something to prove. Now, do I like them with 14? But I don't know. How many guys are sitting out on Georgia? I don't know if Georgia's going to have a bunch of opt-outs. And even if they do, so we're going to opt out.
I want to chime in on that, Sean. I think it's more of a, I think a lot of people are looking at this Georgia-Florida game thinking, oh, Florida's got a point to prove. They got ripped off. But they've already had a ton of guys, or not a ton of guys, but Johnny Wilson already says he's not going to play for the bowl game. You got the quarterback's not going to be there, Jordan Travis. So you don't know who and when the quarterback's not going to play.
Why wouldn't you take an under?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I guess my point is just this idea that people have. I think it's a common theme. Florida State's going to get revenge. They got snubbed, so they're going to go out there and lay the smackdown on Georgia. And my opinion is they're not doing that without Jordan Travis. The fact that Jordan Travis isn't playing is incentive for the rest of the guys not to want to even play in that bowl game. And then you have Georgia and the culture at Georgia. You see a guy like Brock Bowers injure his ankle. He should have just declared, like the smart business decision for him, just declare for the NFL draft. No reason for him to ever come back to this season whatsoever. He's already going to be a multimillionaire in the NFL. The only thing he can do is hurt his chances of making millions by coming back to play for Georgia, but he does it anyways for his coach, for his team. So that's the culture they have there, right?
Yeah.
I like Georgia in this spot. And not only that, Georgia got snubbed too, by the way. Florida State's not the only team that got snubbed.
Yes, but I'm saying from a Florida State standpoint, meaning I'm going to take a under in that game. Now, they still don't have the quarterback. Travis wasn't coming back for this game anyway with his mauled leg. He wasn't coming to this game.
Yeah.
That's the reason why they were bypassed, because they didn't have a quarterback. So it wasn't like he was going to come in and play this game. But I'll take an under in this game. I'll take an under this matchup. I'll take an under in a
while you're going, Sean, you want to answer Ninja here? We like to learn more about being
cappers. Yeah, well, I'll tell you, what do you about my home life here about the washing machine? It happens. Things break down.
No, you get
wrapped up in stuff.
He's still
our mindset.
I think he's still. We like to learn more about being a capper. Is what he's asking. No, it's got nothing to do with your Maytag going down.
I don't have a Maytag. I think it's a Samsung.
Whatever, Sean.
Anyway, listen, I know
you want to answer that? He's stuck in the washing machine mode. You want to answer that, Jesse?
I mean, I think they just got to tune into Midday Money.
Well, look at his next
every day, and you learn how to be a capper.
His next one is like, do trends and stats balance out? Primetime under sitting all year. Those they're nice to have, but I like the over last night in that game. Ninja, I was like, everybody's going to run to one side. If everybody's running to something, go in the other direction.
Yeah, we were talking about. Nice. Yeah, we were talking about that in the Navy Army game. The 28 in the Service Academy games going under at a high rate over the last
48. 4 years ago was 48. Yeah. So that it keeps
getting
coming
into
down.
Uncharted territory.
Yeah,
so that's a real good question, though, Ninja. By the way.
And with the primetime unders, I mean, let's talk about the NFL in general, just an unders.
We're going on an hour and a half here, so we got to sew it up. The Colts and the Bengals we covered, and Jesse likes the Colts plus the 2. I covered the Lions and Bears. I like the Lions -3. Your game was the Titans and Dolphins. Me and Jesse did the best to preview that game. But I'm sure you're prepared to talk about it. So right now the Dolphins are a 13-point favorite. The total in this game is 46.5. It's a Monday night contest.
Monday night doubleheader. Let's do Miami first half. I'm not a big fan of laying 13-14 for the game, but it should get there. Maybe a Miami team total. It's just Miami in a route here. Tennessee's off a battle. A game they should have won, but here they come on a road. Or you think, this defense going to slow down Miami in South Beach? I don't think so. I mean, I like Tennessee. I like the coach. I like the home mentality, but come on. Like the rest of the league, you have quarterback problems. On the other side of the field, we've seen the team with the better quarterback basically win the games all the time. And now you got a wide receiver who's making plays here for MVP. How are they stopping him? Every game that guy goes in here, just take a wide receiver prop for him for yards and touchdowns. I think if I could get 10 to 16 out of Tennessee, I think the sale's over the total, because Miami's going to put up their 30-something, right? They're going to score 34 to 44, and you need 10 points from the visitors here. I think we'll get in some garbage time mode from Will Levis. That's a guy. I mean, he's shown some flashes, but talk about primetime unders. I mean, a lot of these quarterbacks, we see them young, learning. It is what it is. I'm going with the established team. I go Miami first half minus a touchdown. You want to do a little Miami game? I think they're going to win this game going away. So if you want to do that, and I like the over. It's a favorite kind of Monday night game there. Favorite, overs. player prop overs. How Tennessee?
Yeah, and I was just talking about when we discussed the game, Sean, too. Tennessee, their home and away dichotomies. They lost their first home game of the year last week, by the way, against Indianapolis, 31-28 in overtime. They're 4-1 at home. On the road, they're 0-7 straight up and 1-6 against the spread. So the only they don't have a lot of success on the road. The only thing I did say was I thought that their point per game differential based on those numbers on the road would be much higher than -11, but they're not. And of course, out of those 7 games on the road, how many were in the category or the class that the Miami Dolphins are right now? So, yeah, I mean,
None.
I don't know how you.
The Saints. They scored 15 against the Saints, 3 against Cleveland. I mean, I got them at 16 points, 16 points, 14. What's Miami giving up? Say Miami gives up 16 to a rookie quarterback. Maybe they're going to give up 30. So you're still not covering at 30-16.
All right, my man. So
I
you like
apologize for being
Tennessee?
late. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. You like Tennessee -13, and you. I'm sorry.
That'd be a great payday, but I don't.
Excuse me. Miami -7 in the first half. Miami -13 for the game, and the game to go over 46.5. Is that correct?
A round robin for those out there, Youngs. Go ahead. Three-way parlay.
Yeah, we talked about parlays before. If I am going to bet any parlays, it would be in a round robin. And I always, when it comes to a 3-team round robin, I always leave the 3-teamer out because I want to be assured that if I hit 2 out of 3, I'm at least going to make a profit.
Yes.
You can get greedy and go for the 3-teamer, but then you're getting back in the category of winning 2 out of 3 and losing money. So we had this discussion earlier too, Sean, why you weren't here. And, we discussed I talked about my theory in college football where back in the day you would be able to do a side and total in the same game. And if the point spread exceeded 33% of the total, you go with the favorite and over and the under and the underdog. But again, because there's been a lot of clamps put down in that regard, that's a moot point anyway. All right, Jesse, anything else you want to add, buddy, before we sew it up here?
No, I'm good.
All right. So for those of you who have not subscribed, if you're on your PC, you'll see a WC logo in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Just click on that. It's absolutely free to subscribe to our channel. Also, if you're on your smart TV or your mobile device, you'll see a black subscribe button underneath. Just click on that. That will serve the same purpose of getting you subscribed for free. And for those of you who have subscribed, we appreciate each and every one of you. But if you haven't done this already, and for all you new subscribers, take an extra 30 seconds, go into your YouTube settings and click on the alert notification bell for the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel. We do 6 shows a week. Every time one of our shows go up, the 5 archived versions or the live show, you'll be alerted immediately upon those being live or being archived on our channels. We appreciate each and every one of you. Jesse, there's a like button right underneath us.
Smash that like button.
Smash that like button, folks. Just a small token of your appreciation for the time, work, and effort we put into making this a quality podcast for you. And our theme will always be and always continue to be, we want to make you a smarter sports bettor today than you were yesterday. Until the next time, which with Jesse and Sean will be Tuesday. And for me, it will be Monday with Doug Upstone. We'd like to wish each and every one of you have a great weekend, make lots of money, follow our advice, go to our website and subscribe, folks. 3-day, 7-day, 30-day. So again, until the next time, for all of us, it's gamblersworld.net, by the way. For all of us, we'd like to ask you and thank you for everything, and take care and have a good day.